morning. For today's presentation, I selected two verses from chapter 6. Chapter 6 of the Gita, which is called Dhyana Yoga. Dhyana Yoga teaches us about reflection, about introspection, about meditation. It is also called Atma Samyama Yoga because it explains how we can control and calm our minds, how to quieten our minds. On a regular basis, we receive so many stimuli from this world, which could be both pleasant and unpleasant. And when we receive them, our mind reacts to them and has thoughts and goes through mental gyrations, ups and downs. And this can lead to a lot of suffering, lot of agitation. And the Gita teaches us that we cannot control the world. What's happening with the world is happening with the world. But we can learn how to deal with this external world by working on this inside world, the mind. And that is how Gita says we can live in peace. Even though we are in this world, working and doing things in this world, to maintain our peace, Gita says, work on the inside world. And that is how we can have a happier and a healthier life. And that is how we can work on our overcoming our weaknesses. When we're talking about our weaknesses, they come from our habits. We have had so many habits we have developed since childhood, and we have a certain way of reacting to what comes to us from this world. We don't even think about it. It's a knee-jerk type of reaction. And Gita says we can change this. Instead of reacting automatically, even without thinking, you can develop a state where you can think about it and act in a deliberate fashion. And this is what yoga does for us. And Krishna says about what the role of the yoga is in this chapter also. He says, Tam vidya dukkha samyoga viyogam yoga sangitam. He says, let that be known, the severance from the union with pain is yoga. Why are we doing all this? So that we don't suffer with these habits that we have, which bind us. So Krishna says that is what yoga is for, to help you change into a better position. And he says that through meditation, it's one of the main ways you can change this. And why is this important? It is important because we have this inside us, the self, the Atma, the source of all bliss, the source of all joy and peace. And it cannot come out because of all the illusions we are surrounded by, because of all the agitation it is. One of the examples the scriptures give is like, no matter how bright the sun is, the sun cannot shine through, reflect through muddied water. The water has to sit still, stay still, settle, become clear, and only then even the brightest sun can shine through. Same way, no matter how powerful this Atma is, it cannot penetrate through, reflect through, come to us, help us realize who we are, as long as the mind is constantly agitated with all that is going on. We let all that happens outside keep on influencing us. So Krishna explains extensively about how to calm the mind. So Arjuna listens and listens, and then he has a question. And that's what takes us to the verse 35. It says, Arjuna is saying, Chanchalam hi manah Krishna pramadhi balavadrudam tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. He says, verily, O Krishna, the mind is restless, turbulent, strong, and unyielding. To control it, I think, is as difficult as controlling the wind itself. Okay? So, Arjuna is describing his thoughts about what this mind is like. He says it's restless, agitated, fickle, turbulent, very violent, very unruly, strong, very powerful, and unyielding, very obstinate, very hard to change. It's like a strong wind, like a tornado. So he says, I think it's very difficult to control this mind, is what he says. Gita is so full of illustrative similes like this. Here mind is compared to the wind, which is constantly moving, right? Wind doesn't stay in one place, just like our mind. In the second chapter, Krishna has a different twist on the mind. He says, second chapter, 67, Indriyanam hi charatam yadmanonu vidhiyate tadasya harati pragnam vayurnava mivambhasi. He says, the mind that follows the wandering senses with no control, it goes whichever way the senses want to go. That mind gets carried away as the wind carries away a boat on the waters. When the boat is not anchored, it cannot stay. The wind carries it away. Same way, a mind gets carried away with these senses. So there are so many similes to explain about this restless mind we have. In Mahabharata, one of the Yaksha Prasnas that Yaksha asks Dharmaraja Yudhishthira is, what is the fastest thing in this world? And Dharmaraja answers, it is the mind. It is so strong, it can be any place, any time, any way, any shape or form it wants to be. Right now, if I want to imagine I'm on the moon, I'm there. So it is a very, very interesting, strong instrument that we have, tool we have. But yet it's very uncontrolled. It's very wandering. Krishna himself, earlier in this chapter, describes this mind as 6:26. Manas chanchalam astiram. He says it's restless and it is unsteady, constantly moving. It's almost like when you look at the ocean. Scriptures also talk about this. Ocean is constantly churning. If mind is like the ocean, the waves are like, the thoughts are like the waves, constantly coming and going and moving. So Arjuna is following Krishna's lead. He says, you said yourself it is restless, and then he adds his words also to illustrate how strong this mind is, how hard it is, too difficult, and how he feels it's impossible task to control this mind. This is one area where it illustrates why Gita is called the Upanishad. Upanishads are the last part of the Vedas, which are in a discourse form. There are teachers, there are students. Students ask questions about the profound truth, the deepest truth, and the teacher answers. Same thing is happening in the Gita. It's a discourse, it's a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. Krishna, the Jagat Guru, Arjuna, the Shishya, is asking the questions and the Guru is answering. Okay? So that is why it is called an Upanishad. In Hinduism, it is encouraged. That's one of the beauties that we find in Hinduism, where the Shishya students are encouraged to ask questions. Many other religions can be declarative, thou shalt follow this way. Whereas in Hinduism, one of the characteristics is it's interrogative. Ask questions and get them clarified. In fact, in the 4th chapter earlier, Krishna tells Arjuna, Tatvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninaha tattva darshanaha. He says, with reverence, pranipatena means in a humble way, in prostrate, with prostration, with humility, go and ask questions. Approach the wise who know the truth, who know the ultimate truth. Serve them and ask questions repeatedly. Ask with respect. Ask until you get clarified about your doubts, so that those teachers can give you the ultimate truth about the divine truth. So Krishna encourages. So Arjuna has followed his advice and he's trying to clarify his doubts. And Arjuna is no ordinary man either. He was a very, very accomplished man. He was well-educated man. He was not only good in warfare, in archery and those type of things which we are aware of. He was also very good in dance, very good in music, learned a lot about the scriptures. If you remember in serving the king, in the Virat king, he was teaching dance and singing and all to Uttara. So he was a very accomplished man, well-rounded man. So he is not an ordinary man just, spouting out questions. So he is asking his doubt, clarify my doubt. If you also notice, another interesting point here is he addresses Krishna as Krishna here. He addresses him in many ways. He calls him Achyuta, Varshneya, Janardana. He says many ways. But here he says Krishna. The implication here is Krishna has many meanings. Dark, attractive, but it also means scrape. Okay? Scraping away all the illusions, scraping away the untruth. So we would find the ultimate reality. Okay? So there are meanings to why one is called what in particular time and verse sometimes. And Krishna himself says this reality is like in the 3rd chapter, Dhumena vriyate vahnihi. Just like there is fire, but we cannot see it because it's surrounded by smoke. This ultimate reality in us is surrounded by all these illusions because we identify with our body, with our mind, and we are so wrapped up in the external world. There is a huge internal world, unlimited internal world inside. Or sometimes you can see about an actor, with all the makeup. When the makeup is taken out, the actor is revealed. Before that, you just see the outer shell. So Krishna is teaching us how to discover this self by calming the mind. Okay? And Arjuna is asking, how can you discover the self when it is almost impossible to calm this mind? It looks to me, it's not possible. So to that, Krishna says, we go to the next verse, 35. Asamshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena cha gruhyate. He says, undoubtedly, O mighty armed one, the mind is difficult to control. The mind is restless. Yet, O son of Kunti, by practice, with dispassion, it can be controlled. So he says, first thing he's saying is, he is agreeing with Arjuna. He says, yeah, you are exactly right. The mind is restless. It's very difficult to control. It's not easy to achieve mental peace and tranquility. And the implication being, when we agree with the questioner, you see, it diffuses the situation. And the questioner feels validated, questioner feels heard. And it's easier to recruit that person into your way of thinking when you have diffused the situation, rather than saying, no, you're wrong, it can be done. You see the difference, what Krishna does here? So, and then notice that he also addresses him as, to begin with, Mahabaho. Mahabaho means big armed, strong, mighty armed one. So he's reminding Arjuna, you're a very strong person. Implication is, yet, you are right, the mind is very strong, but you are even stronger. He's implying that the mind cannot be stronger than you. And then he lays out the idea with practice, with dispassion, means abhyasa and vairagya. Those are the tools you use to control the mind. The word he uses is guhyate. Guhyate is the last word of this verse. So he has laid his foundation and brought the word control towards the end of the conversation. He didn't say, yep, you can control it. See the difference about how slowly he has progressed? So the words he used are abhyasa. Abhyasa is practice, practice, practice. And this word practice comes up many times in the Gita, because this doesn't happen. These changes are very, very difficult to go through. So we have to practice and practice and practice. And Krishna himself says, Shanai Shanai Uparamed. When we practice too, we cannot take the whole thing and aim for the ultimate. Slowly, take a little piece, start practicing. And what is the nature of this practice? Vairagya, dispassion. What does that mean? Meaning, learning to not be dependent on this world for pain and pleasure. Nothing wrong in going and enjoying. Nothing wrong in, realizing what's going on, acknowledging what is going on. If things are not going right, trying to set them right. But not letting this internal world constantly be churned by the outside world is what he's talking about. The two main areas we depend on the world are pain and pleasure. We are either attracted to the world, or we have aversion to the world. Either we are pleased with the world or we are disturbed by the world. We don't seem to be able to keep a balance. It's called samatvam, equanimity. We don't seem to be able to maintain it. We are constantly going up and down. So that's what Krishna is talking about. How we live here. The thrust of Gita is live here, but not let the outside world rob you of your internal peace. But even before you go that far, Krishna says, you need to do something else. He says, 6:17 in the same chapter, he says, Yuktahara viharasya yukta cheshtasya karmasu yukta swapnava bodhasya yogo bhavati dukhaha. For him who is moderate in eating, recreation, work and other activities, sleep and wakefulness, yoga becomes destroyer of pain. Yeah, I said practice yoga so you wouldn't suffer. But even before you do that, take care of your body. That is more important to begin with. This body, which is very sacred because it's housing the ultimate inside it. It's called Navadvare Pure Dehi. The soul is in this 9-gated mansion. In the 3rd chapter, he describes it as 9-gated mansion. We have all these holes in the body, 9-gated mansion. And it needs to be taken care of first. A healthy body is a very important prerequisite. If you're not healthy, it's hard to think about higher purpose, right? We are so suffering with the body and all the ill health effects we have. So he says, take care of the body. and avoid overindulgence. Okay, about the food you eat, not too much, not too little, healthy food and sattvic food. And how much you sleep, sleep enough. Typically we need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Many of us, very few can do well with little sleep, but many of us need that much sleep. Sleep well and work well, and all the other activities including recreation. Isn't it interesting, like 3 to 4, I don't know how many thousands of years ago, these were talked about, and they talked about recreation, in that time. It is just very interesting. So we need to have some hobbies, we need to have some passion, and we need to exercise regularly. We need to balance all these things so that we can have a healthy body to begin with, and then we can have some more with the healthy mind. In this modern day and time, we have to think about also the electronics. We have not only all this, we are consumed by cell phones and on and on and on. So we need to know how to take a good break from this, when to use them to our advantage but not let them dominate us. And we need to also be cognizant of what type of media we are watching, how these media are affecting us, okay? And how our internal state of mind is also being affected by them. So we need to learn to take a break, maybe go for a walk, and develop other healthy rituals that energize us, okay? Whatever that would be for all of us. Reading, listening to music, whatever else that pleases us. All this is like preparation to take up something very profound like meditation, to calm our minds down, to increase our focus, to increase our concentration, to help us be still so that we are prepared to deal with the world in a much better fashion, so that we can be mindful in all our activities, not only just doing meditation, but in day-to-day life, living in awareness. So Krishna talks about this extensively. Swami Vivekananda also has discussed a lot about meditation and how it is so important to meditate to help us accomplish this. And he was also very interestingly discussed about the common challenges that we face when we are meditating. What happens? Many people talk about this avalanche of, flood of thoughts we get when we sit to meditate. We get all these thoughts, and sometimes we may feel actually more disturbed by sitting down to meditate than feel calm. So Vivekananda recommends this. He says, just like you sit to meditate, before you even go to doing that, sit to look at your thoughts. You see, you're recruiting that thought, that area that was disturbing you, to come your way. So he says, just like you would schedule a regular time to meditate, schedule a regular time just to look at your thoughts. Sit and say, what do I think about? What am I thinking about? And why am I thinking about? You see, start looking at those things. When you start looking at your thoughts, it helps you to realize that you are looking at your thoughts. You are not your mind. You're able to distance your mind. You're able to look at your mind that this is something I can work on. You see, so it helps. That practice, he says, actually helps us to know what is going on, why it's going on, and start working on it rather than fighting the thoughts while we are meditating. Does that make sense? Very interesting, I thought. So then, when we have these thoughts, what type of thoughts do we have that usually disturb us? We talked about some, like, for example, about anger thoughts. anger because the world didn't go according to what we want, anger because somebody hurt us or somebody said something about us or put us down, or there can be other types of disturbing areas. We may compare ourselves to others, we may be jealous, somebody else somebody else is doing better than we are doing, and goes on and on and on. One of the common disturbing thoughts we have is about worry. So I thought we will talk a little bit more about worry. Once we have realized what is bothering us, what is disturbing us, there are many ways of handling all these things, but I thought we'll talk about worry, which is a very common thing almost all of us do, realizing that worry does not solve a darn thing. But we are so habituated to worrying about so many things, starting from a student who might be worried about an exam, or a little child worrying about not getting the toy he or she wants, to on and on and on. And many times we worry that we don't get what we want, or if we got it, we worry we are going to lose it, and we worry that somebody else may have better than we have, on and on and on. So what do we do with worry? Saying it's not going to solve anything may not change anything. So one of the techniques, again going back to what Swami Vivekananda said, it is said that you can actually schedule time to worry. And that helps you to look at the gravity you're placing about worry, and then maybe the illogical nature of your worry. Does that make sense again? Just like you sit and look at your thoughts, one can also sit and say, let me worry. 4 o'clock in the evening is my worrying time. You see? Because you cannot replace something with nothing. Just saying, don't worry, is not going to work. Instead of worrying all the time, we are scheduling a time. Earlier I talked about in earlier presentations where I said we can use like Scarlett O'Hara method, Gone with the Wind. She says, I'll worry about it tomorrow. That's postponing, okay? I'll worry about it 1 hour later. I'll worry about it next week. That's one way. But this one is a regular exercise. You see, sit each day at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, AM, PM, whatever. This is my worry time. So it's a going the other way to achieve the same goal, right? So that would again help us to look at what we are worrying about and whether we need to continue to worry or come up with a solution that we can come up with. And then this is the other catch there. When we are worrying, it is said that worry and imagine the worst possible outcome. Okay? Say the student is worried about exams. Let him imagine he failed the exam. Okay? And then look into the inner strength. I'm going to worry about I can't pay mortgage and I lose the house, or I lose the job, whatever. Imagine the worst possible outcome and then tap into the strength. If this happens really, do I have strength to deal with it? How am I going to deal with it? That would open up. It's okay, it won't be the end of the world. I can manage. You see? So that's one way of doing it. So no matter what, we have to figure out a method that works out. I just gave 1 or 2 examples to make you think about what is it that's going on in my head, how am I going to deal with it. It's not the only way to doing it. Swami Vivekananda says, japa helps a lot. Just uttering a mantra, a Shanti mantra, repeatedly helps some people. So one has to find out, is it that way or this way? Is it reading books? Is it going to a satsang? Is it listening to a seminar? Is it talking to my friends? Whichever method we pick or methods we pick, first of all, we need to go with the attitude that I am going to stick with this. This is the decision I'm making. I recognize that I need to change to lead a better life, more evolved life, more spiritual life, more peaceful life. So I want to do this. Second, believe that we can do. We have the capacity, not only desire and discipline, but also the capacity to change. We have that capacity. We can tap into it and stick with it and do it again, again, and again. That's what the Lord is talking about. Abhyasa, do it again, again, and again. So that you are not a slave to the external world. And if meditation works, start slowly, build it up, because it is a very great tool to help us accomplish this. And it is said that anything we do, if we do at least for 21 days, it helps to set the pattern. So we are replacing some old habits with some new habits so that we live a better life. And why is all that important? I would like to close with what Swami Vivekananda said. He said this is all important because one who has conquered his mind conquered the world. Okay? One who has not conquered his mind has not conquered anything. Even if he has conquered the world, if he is not able to live in peace, it's not worth it. That's my presentation.